Good morning, Vlogmas. Welcome to day 12. It's the 11th of December, so we're only here. That's Christmas jumper day. And it's the jingly jangly reindeer sweater today. It doesn't jingle too much, so hopefully it shouldn't annoy too many people. And yeah, we'll see what I get up to today. I've got that dress to hem, got some Christmas masks to make, patterns put together, that kind of stuff. So you'll see how far through my list I get. A bit grotty outside, so good job I'm not planning on going anywhere. I'll see you in a bit. So the postie has been and delivered some more fabric from Minerva. I've got some more on the way. This is the first bit. It doesn't look very exciting from here, I know, because it's charcoal. What this is a Ponte Roma, and if you can see there, it's got these pinpricks all through it, right the way across the whole length of the fabric. So I'm going to have to think about what I'm going to do with that. It's obviously going to need to go over something. I was thinking possibly a pinafore, but I think I would want to line it if I was going to pinafore with something contrasty that would show through these pinpricks. That could be quite cool. But I could also do like a duster type thing, or a sweater or a cardigan or something. Ponte Roma is a knit fabric, so it's quite stretchy. So having something bright underneath would be quite cool. But yeah, we'll see. Obviously that's going to need to be washed and pressed. I've got 3 meters of it. There must have been the end of a bolt in there somewhere though, because they've sent me the 2 meter piece and a 1 meter piece, which is fine. Just means I need to think about how I lay out pattern pieces on it. So yeah, it's a fairly stable knit, bit heavier weight than the jersey I've just sewn up for the dress, but not as heavy as a scuba. Or at least not as heavy as the scuba I did this Rocco in. Scubas can come in various weights as well. So yeah, be interesting to see that worked up. Okay, so I'm back in the kitchen. You're a little bit further away today, so you can see all the stuff on top of my fridge and the mess in the corner and what have you, but that's because I've got a tiny kitchen. I'm going to be making a cherry coconut chocolate slice cake thing. Coconut slice it generally gets called, but it's not like coconut ice slice type thing. It is a cake type thing. Now my brother normally makes this, so I've got the recipe from him. I've not made it before, to my knowledge. I don't remember ever making it before. So at the moment I've got some chocolate on the stove melting, or at least it will be melting once the water underneath it boils, which is why you're further back, because yesterday you were sat on top of the stove and that wouldn't be a good plan when I've got the rain on. I've already weighed out my bits and bobs because that's not the most exciting bit of a cooking video. So we have already buttered and lined our tin. We have weighed out and dropped our knife, butter and sugar. I'll put the quantities down below in the description box. I've got an egg, I've got some desiccated coconut and cherries. I've got a couple of extra cherries in there because it never looks like quite enough. I need to chop the cherries up, so I'll do that first once my chocolate is melting. I've got my email from my brother printed out with what to do on it. So once the chocolate is melted, I'll be pouring that into the tin. I'm using butter, but the recipe calls for marge, but I don't have marge, so I'm using butter instead. So hopefully that will soften up enough for me to cream in with the butter. But actually if the chocolate cools in the tin whilst I'm doing all that sort of stuff, that's fine, because I'm going to pour it over the top and you don't want it mixing together too much. So cream together the marge and the sugar, add the eggs and the coconut. It's a very simple recipe. So first things first, I'm going to chop up my cherries. the glace cherries. You should be able to get them in most places. We just get ours from the supermarket, but I'm sure we have glace cherries or something similar wherever you are. They come in like tubs in the UK. And because the recipe's in ounces, I will try and put conversions with the quantities down below. But because it's in ounces and I work in grams normally, I've ordered too many cherries. What a shame. We'll just have some more cherries to eat. Which is fine. We like cherries in this house, so that's not a problem at all. But I was obviously able to change my scales into ounces. I've got digital scales, so you can change the unit on them quite easily and weigh everything out in ounces, because it's never quite an exact conversion when you convert from grams to ounces. I find you always get like point something or other, and that's just a bit tricky to weigh out. So I generally round things up or down, usually up. I'm more likely to put more of something in the recipe than less. So yeah, so glace cherries, they are sticky because they're covered in like a syrup. Because they might be called different things in different countries, which is why I'm describing them to you. And so if you have glace cherries, you know what they are. They're preserved cherries. They're sweet. They're not cocktail cherries. They're not the same thing as that. They generally come in quite a dark cherry colour. See, my water is now boiling because steam's coming up in front. What I've got is a pudding basin, and I'm using my steamer to melt it, because you don't want the bowl that's got the chocolate in hitting the water or the pan or anything whilst you're doing it. So that's how I sort my bain-maries out with the small quantities of stuff. If it was a larger quantity, I'd be sitting a bowl in the saucepan, but the pudding basin is just too small. It falls down into the pan and it sits on the bottom, which you don't want because it'll scorch your chocolate. And I always clean up as I go. It saves cleaning up at the end. Or at least makes it less of an issue. So I'm just going to get a little bit steamy. Obviously, putting my hand over the top, I am going to keep getting caught by the steam, but it's okay. Don't want to do too much to it, just moving it around so that I can see how many lumps we've got. So whilst that's doing that, I've got my sugar. I've used caster sugar, and I've got my butter, which is sort of soft, and I'm going to cream those together, which might take me a little while, so I will switch the camera off and get that done, because otherwise the vlog will be really long. Alright, I'm going to put a time lapse on. And once I've creamed together my butter and my sugar, I'm going to add an egg, add the coconut, add the cherries, mix it all together, and then pour it over the top of the chocolate. So it's actually nice and simple. Okay, so let's put a time lapse on and I'll get that done, and as I say, I will write the recipe in the description box down below. Okay, so that didn't take too long to do, and the chocolate is now melted. I haven't put the cherries in yet, but I'll do that in a minute. So I'm going to pour my chocolate into my tin and make sure it spreads out right the way across the bottom. I'm probably going to need to use a spatula to get the last this out, because I don't want to waste my chocolate. That would be a tragedy. I've used my larger spatula for creaming the butter and the sugar, so that's in the other bowl at the moment, so I'm using my little one. Now I use silicone spatulas, and they're nice and flexible, which is helpful for the creaming and things, but they also come apart for cleaning, which is useful. Just take the red bit off and wash the handle and the blade separate. So I've used dark chocolate because that's my preference. Doesn't specify which chocolate to use, So you can use one you like. Normally for baking I'll be like, well, supermarket owned is fine for baking, and when you're putting it in a cake that's true, because it mixes in with the flavour of the batter. Whereas this recipe, the chocolate is actually just going to sit at the bottom, it's not running through the cake mix at all, so go with one you like. I think dark chocolate always works well with cherry, but if you prefer milk chocolate, go with milk chocolate. Okay, so that's the chocolate in the bottom of the tin. So it's spread out across the bottom. Put that to one side whilst I mix in the cherries to my coconut, sugar, egg and butter mix. Marge has obviously got a different consistency to butter, so it may well be a different consistency when you do it with Marge. I don't know, because like I say, I don't ever remember making this recipe. My sisters made it when we were kids, and then my brother took over making it, and it became like his specialty from when he was really quite young. It was primary school when he started making this, I believe. So like 8 or 9, something like that. And it's something I always remember him making. And obviously my chocolate is melted, so that's quite liquid. And this is quite thick. So I think what I might do is actually let the chocolate settle for a little bit, because it's quite runny at the moment. Just for a minute or two, so that it's then easier to put my mixture on top, because if I start dolloping it on and spreading it out, it's going to move the chocolate around, and you want the chocolate layer on the bottom. So yes, I might let that set. In fact, I might put it in the fridge for a few minutes, which it doesn't say to do in the recipe, but I think that's going to make my life a little bit easier. So yeah, so I'm going to do that, and then I'll come back and I'll put the topping on. I've already got my oven heating up to 180 degrees, so once I put my mixture on, I'll bake it. It takes about 20 minutes to bake, so it's quite quick. And I will show you what it looks like when it comes out the oven. Okay, so I've taken the chocolate out of the fridge, and it seems to have done the trick. It's made it solid enough for me to spread the mixture on the top. I've sort of spooned it across to get an even layer, and I'll just put the last bit on now. I'm just using the back of a spoon to spread it out. I could be using my spatula, but I'm not, because I've spooned it, so I've got that in my hand. By spooning it out as well, I've been able to make sure that the cherries are relatively evenly spaced across the tin. And yeah, it is quite a firm mixture. I think I would have had a bit of difficulty if I tried doing that with the chocolate still melted. It only took a couple of minutes in the fridge to chill it enough to make it solid. Felt very bake-off-ish, because they're always sticking stuff in the fridge and the freezer, aren't they? Okay, so that's what it looks like in the tin. So we're going to put it in the oven at 180 degrees centigrade. That's, I think, 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Check the description box down below, because I'll have some conversions in there. And I'll show you what it looks like when it comes out in 20 minutes time. Okay, so there's my cake fresh out of the oven. If you listen carefully, you might be able to hear it bubbling. That's a nice sound. So I'm going to leave it in the tin to cool completely, because otherwise liquid chocolate is not going to stay on it. And then I'll take it out and cut it up, and it'll be delicious. So Christmas masks are done. I did make a little bit of a hiccup on the construction, so I've had to go in and do an extra line of top stitching just down the side just to sort of hold the shape. But I do find these 3D ones fit a bit better, so I will have to do some more in non-Christmassy fabrics. I've only got the one at the moment in non-Christmassy fabrics. So yeah, let's do some more of those for the new year.